From the man who once dominated the octagon to now being found liable for raping a woman in an Irish hotel, we are doing a breakdown of the controversies surrounding Conor McGregor. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Conor McGregor is certainly a name we've been talking about a lot here on Sidebar, and a name that has been in the headlines quite a bit after he was just found liable for sexually assaulting a woman in Ireland. And we're going to get to that, but what we want to do is a bit of a full 360-degree analysis of Conor McGregor. So who is Conor McGregor? He's a 36-year-old former multi-weight UFC champion. He's from Crumlin, Dublin, burst onto the UFC scene back in 2013, took the whole world, the whole industry by storm. He has held the UFC featherweight and lightweight division championships, the first fighter to win two weight divisions simultaneously. He has a 22-6 professional record, but that has expanded beyond the octagon too. You might remember his infamous boxing bout against Floyd Mayweather back in 2017. How many eyeballs did that draw? He's also a businessman, like co-founding Proper No. 12 Irish Whiskey. And he's now in Hollywood, having starred in the Roadhouse reboot alongside Jake Gyllenhaal. He is, without a doubt, one of the most recognizable fighters and athletes in modern times. And a successful one too, making millions and millions of dollars in the process. But this is a man who doesn't come without controversy. Like, for example, how since 2017, he has run into a number of legal issues on the road, pleading guilty to driving offenses, has had his driving privileges revoked for 6 months. He's been charged with careless driving, arrested for driving without a license and being uninsured. In 2018, Conor McGregor pleaded guilty to disorderly conduct after he threw a hand dolly at a bus that was full of UFC fighters. This was following a news conference at Brooklyn's Barclays Center. There was this video that showed McGregor literally tossing trash cans and being prevented from throwing a barricade at a bus. This was near a loading dock elevator. He threw a hand dolly at the bus, and that apparently caused an injury to a person inside. Following that incident, McGregor was arrested. He pleaded guilty to a charge of disorderly conduct, but he didn't serve any jail time. He had to pay full restitution to the bus company for any damages that were caused. He had to complete 5 days of community service and a short anger management program. Conor McGregor ended up saying, "I just want to say I'm thankful to the DA and the judge for allowing me to move forward." But his troubles didn't end there, because in 2019, he faced charges for smashing a fan's phone. This was actually caught on surveillance footage. Happened outside of a hotel in Miami Beach. McGregor was charged with felony robbery and misdemeanor criminal mischief, and he was hit with a lawsuit by the victim. And although he spent a few hours in jail and was released on bond, the charges were ultimately dropped after he and the alleged victim reached an out-of-court settlement. But also, in 2019, he was fined by a Dublin court for punching a man in a pub. Pleaded guilty to an assault charge after there was this video footage of the incident that surfaced that was played during a court hearing. McGregor accepted full responsibility for his actions and told the judge, quote, "I assure you nothing of this nature will happen again." Avoided up to 6 months behind bars. 2020, McGregor's accused of indecent exposure and sexual assault on the French island of Corsica. 8 months after his initial arrest, the case is dropped. Now, prosecutors, as reported by TMZ, released a statement saying the following: "The examination of the present proceedings does not justify any criminal prosecution, since the facts or the circumstances of the facts of the proceedings could not have been clearly established by the investigations. The pieces of evidence are therefore not sufficient for the offense to be constituted and for criminal prosecution to be engaged." McGregor's representative stated at the time that this was based on DNA evidence that corroborated his account. 2021, Italian DJ Francesco Fascinetti accused McGregor of punching him in the face and breaking his nose. This was outside of a hotel in Rome in October of 2021, reportedly suffering injuries to his lip and neck. Kind of unclear what the status of that claim is. But then you fast forward the following year to 2022. McGregor is allegedly accused of physically attacking a woman on a yacht in Ibiza, that it got so bad she had to jump into the water to run away from him. Now, McGregor denied these allegations, and while it was reported that Spanish authorities had reopened an investigation and the woman filed a complaint with Irish police, she also apparently filed a lawsuit against Conor McGregor, but it has since been dropped. 2023, McGregor was accused of violently forcing himself on and kissing a woman in a VIP men's bathroom at an NBA Finals game in Miami. Now, despite apparent video of the two entering the bathroom together, the state attorney's office declined to move forward with criminal charges, and according to TMZ, there were reported issues with the woman's credibility, and also apparently a bathroom attendant didn't hear any signs of distress. Now, with all of that in mind, that brings me to the main controversy of today, the 2018 sexual assault. So before we get into the specific allegations of the civil trial, I want to give you the backstory of this. We're talking about 35-year-old Nikita Hand, who says that back in December of 2018, she went to the Beacon Hotel in Dublin with Conor McGregor, another woman who we'll talk about, and McGregor's friend James Lawrence. This was after her work Christmas party. She had been working as a stylist for a hair salon. And apparently she knew McGregor before. They were part of the same friend group. She even claimed that she knew his longtime partner, now fiance, Dee Devlin. And the two had apparently been messaging on Instagram leading up to what happened that night. Now, Nikita admitted that she was drinking heavily. She did cocaine. But she claims she knows what happened next. And it was not consensual. Nikita says that when her friend and Lawrence went to another room of the hotel to have sex, McGregor started to come on to her, and he wouldn't take no for an answer. She claimed that McGregor pinned her down in the bed, choked her, and eventually raped her. And as a result, she sustained injuries. And I'm going to get to those injuries in a minute. But she said she was in such fear for her life at one point that she admitted to being afraid to initially report the attack and told her friends and family to delete messages about it. She was afraid that if word got out, McGregor would hurt her. And while she initially wasn't honest with her boyfriend over text about what was going on that night, she did say that when she went home, she told him, her boyfriend, that she had been raped, but she refused to say who raped her. There was even a recording of this conversation between her and her boyfriend that was played at trial too. Now, in early 2019, Nikita reported this assault to police. They launched an investigation. McGregor was questioned, he was released, and he offered the police a prepared statement and then answered no comment to all the other questions that they asked. We'll talk about that too. But as part of that investigation, police had learned that James Lawrence had actually also had sex with Nikita on that night. Now, he says it was consensual. The thing about that is Nikita says she doesn't even remember that at all. So McGregor was the subject of a criminal investigation, but the Director of Public Prosecutions in Ireland decided in 2020 not to press charges, not to move forward with charges, citing insufficient evidence for a reasonable prospect of conviction. Now, both men, McGregor and Lawrence, they have denied the allegations, reportedly saying that anything that happened was consensual, and that is what led to this lawsuit. This was another way for Nikita Hand to seek justice, saying both McGregor and Lawrence sexually assaulted her. Now, to be clear about something, there were no cameras in this Irish courtroom for this civil trial. Having said that, as you'll see in a minute, we spoke with a BBC Dublin reporter who was in that courtroom and kind of gave us an understanding of what that scene looked like. But I would say one of the most significant aspects of this trial is when Nikita Hand took the stand. And she testified to what I described before. She said, I tried to talk him around, that I didn't want to have sex and wasn't there for anything like that. He just wasn't taking no for an answer. She testified, he pinned me down on the bed. I held my hands to my chest. He put his body weight on top of me. Now, what potentially complicated Hand's case was CCTV footage from the hotel. You see, there is apparently video where you see McGregor getting into the elevator to leave the hotel, and there's also video that allegedly shows Nikita appearing to kiss McGregor on the arm. Now, Nikita said in court that she just doesn't remember that. McGregor's attorneys also claim that the video at one point shows the two hugging. In separate CCTV footage, Nikita can be seen in the basement of the hotel with James Lawrence. The two were reportedly struggling to stay steady because they were both highly intoxicated. And the lawyer said that Nikita at one point kissed Lawrence on the cheek, and another point, the two reportedly had their arms around each other. Now, Nikita reportedly cried in court when the video was played because, again, she had no recollection of this happening. And on cross-examination, McGregor's attorneys really tore into Nikita, asking how she could remember some parts of the night and not other parts of the night. And they also questioned her on why she had her friends and family delete any of the messages related to the alleged assault. But as I mentioned before, she was in fear. And also, that friend who I had mentioned who had sex with Lawrence in the other room, Danielle Keeley, she testified too, saying that after she left the room, quote, everything was fine and no one was in bad form. I didn't notice anything that happened. And she told the court, she told the jury, that she later gets this Instagram message from Nikita saying that she had been sexually assaulted. But Keeley told Nikita that she hadn't seen anything like that. And she told the jurors that she hadn't spoken with Nikita again after that. Hey, I just want to take a minute away from this story, a very disturbing story to say the least, to ask you guys something else. Something, yes, it's quite random, but any of you business owners out there, maybe those of you thinking of starting a business, you're like, why is he asking that? Well, that's because we have this sponsor whose whole goal is to help people like you. It's called Odoo. Odoo is a free all-in-one business management software that provides you with a range of applications that helps with the day-to-day of owning a business. So something really cool they have in the Odoo apps is their project apps. Multiple views in the project app, like the Kanban view that organizes tasks by stage, the Gantt view that gives you a timeline of your tasks. Seriously, by the way, it makes things so simple and easy to organize. Also in the Projects app, you can directly bill customers according to time spent on tasks, which is such a time saver when you think about it. So right now you can click our link odoo.com/LC-Sidebar5. You can try Odoo and their Projects app for free today. Now, before I get into more evidence in the case, as I mentioned, we had the opportunity to speak with BBC Dublin reporter Aoife Moore on a previous Sidebar, as she was in that courtroom every day. And she helped set the stage for what happened in that courtroom.
Some days were easier than others. I think anyone, including Conor McGregor and Nikita, would agree with that. Nikita Hand spent a number of days on the stand in which she was incredibly distressed. It was quite hard to be in the room. I think it was hard for anyone to listen to. She was very hysterical at crying at times. There was often, we would have to take breaks. The court would have to go into recess to give her time to compose herself again. And the jury, when we were looking over at the jury, even some of the jury looked quite distressed because Nikita was so distressed. Then the day everyone waited for was the day Conor McGregor got up on the stand, because he is a celebrity. Nikita Hand is not. And there was, Conor McGregor is known as the showman. So there was kind of this expectation of how is he going to be on the stand? Like, how is he going to conduct himself? And at times you could hear a pin drop. And you remember, as a member of the media, you're not just watching the stand, you're watching the jury as well. You want to see their reactions. There was 8 women, 4 men, which is rare enough. It's to have a woman in the majority. But days were incredibly distressing. Some of the press were incredibly distressed at some of, the evidence that we got from doctors and paramedics and things like that. And there was times that Nikita Hand's boyfriend, who sat with her in the seats, he was quite distressed. You could see him visibly crying as well. And this is against the backdrop of a balcony, a public balcony, where members of the public can go in to watch this case. And there was a lot of young men. There was some young people in their school uniforms that had obviously not gone to school that day, but came into the court because they wanted to see Conor McGregor. And the public gallery was packed. On the bottom floor where we were, it was standing room only, and that was just for press.
And when I spoke with Aoife, she said it really seemed like the testimony of the medical professionals is what may have decided this case. Why? Because paramedics were called out when this happened, and Nikita told them that she had been attacked, and she apparently had a panic attack on the way to the hospital. One paramedic testified that she examined Nikita and saw bruising on her chest, around her neck, down her legs. She said that she, quote, hadn't seen someone so bruised in a long time. A video was shown to the jury of Nikita being treated where it's reported you could see her injuries. And by the way, Nikita says not only was she choked, not only was she raped, but McGregor aggressively pulled her clothes off before the attack. And photos shown in court of the outfit that she was wearing that night appeared to show damage to her underwear and jumpsuit. And I hate to get graphic, but she claimed, and reportedly so did the medical professionals, that she was wearing a tampon when this assault happened, and that the medical team at the hospital actually had to use forceps to remove it. And more than a week after this attack, Nikita went to her regular doctor, Emma Quinn, and Dr. Quinn testified that Nikita told her she had been assaulted, and she said that she was having pain in her neck. And Dr. Quinn said it was likely that Nikita had internal bruising, that it was consistent with being forcibly held down. Another doctor testified that in May of 2019, he declared Nikita unfit for work because of depression, anxiety, PTSD. And also, there was more evidence to suggest that there was some kind of intimate interaction between the two of them, because a DNA expert, Dr. Charlotte Murphy, testified that samples matching Conor McGregor's semen were found on Nikita's playsuit and underwear that she was wearing on the night of the alleged incident. But I should tell you, Dr. Murphy stated this doesn't indicate the nature of the interaction, saying the presence or absence of semen does not indicate consent. But you can see taken together how this is corroborating Nikita's account. Having said that, this was all key, but we also heard from Conor McGregor. He took the stand, he testified, and he doubled down that the encounter between him and Nikita was completely consensual. And McGregor even testified that earlier on that day, Nikita had sent him a picture message on Instagram where she was allegedly wearing what he referred to as a slightly provocative dress. He also said that he received a slew of messages from Nikita asking him to meet her that night. And when it came to their encounter, McGregor said that the two were kissing passionately before they engaged in what he called fully consensual sex that was good-hearted and happy. He said there were no signs of distress, fear, anything other than enjoyment, elations, and excitement. And as a matter of fact, one of the first things he said on the stand regarding Nikita's testimony was, quote, "Everything is a lie. It is a full-blown lie among many lies." And he also characterized their encounter as enthusiastic and athletic. And of course, he was essentially saying that he cheated on his partner, Dee Devlin, the person that he had been reportedly with since 2008. Now, going back to Nikita, when asked about her extensive injuries, McGregor denied hurting her, saying she didn't get those bruises from me as far as I'm aware. And he even suggested that her bruises were from taking a swan dive into a bath while they were partying. And by the way, McGregor's co-defendant, James Lawrence, also mentioned the bruising when he took the stand. And he said Nikita was only upset about one small bruise and what she was going to tell her boyfriend about it. Now, whereas Nikita had testified that McGregor had put her into a headlock when he sexually assaulted her, McGregor denied that he ever did this. But Nikita also claimed that he said, "Now you know how I felt in the octagon," seemingly referring to the UFC ring when he was beaten back in 2018. But McGregor not only denied that, he told the jury, "How can anyone believe that me, as a prideful person, would highlight my shortcomings?" Meaning that he would mention he lost. Really fascinating there. Now, McGregor also talked about his police interview. And I mentioned this. There was a recording of this that was played for the jury where they heard him say no comment to over 100 questions. And he said he did this because of the advice from his lawyer. He was in a state of shock and fear, claiming, "I would have loved to go to a top of the mountain with a microphone and shout from the hilltops, but because of the seriousness of the allegation, I went to my lawyer and took their advice." And he went on to express that this was the first time he had ever experienced anything like this. He testified, quote, "I feel I was good as cooperative. I took their advice. I put myself in their hands. This is alien to me. It's the first time anything like that has ever happened to me in my life." That interview, by the way, is from January 2019, where McGregor was seen attending the interview with his attorney, handing over a prepared written statement. And then he apparently replied no comment to about 150 questions. And it was even simple questions, such as if he and Nikita were from the same area in Dublin, and even a question about how he and Nikita knew each other. And Aoife also explained more about what it was like watching McGregor testify.
You have to take Conor McGregor as someone who has reached the pinnacle of his career. I think maybe some people were surprised at how timid at points he was on the stand. He said himself, he said he was terrified to be accused of rape. He said it was an alien situation for him to be in. He did, however, lose his temper on the stand. He did. He was at one point slightly chastised by the judge because of his manner on the stand. And I think that was a big thing for people, because just to put him in comparison with Nikita Hand, she never really faltered in that she was so distressed the entire way through it. whereas Conor McGregor went through more range of emotions, and he spent a lot less time on the stand as well. There was a long back and forth between himself and Nikita's legal team, and he seemed to not enjoy it when it was brought up that he had been defeated in the octagon. And that was, well, I'm not a legal expert, but many people say that was on purpose, trying to goad Conor McGregor into losing his temper. But I think we saw a few different sides of Conor McGregor on the stand, and he was very upset, visibly upset, when the verdict came through that he had been found liable. He had his mother on one side and his partner on the other. And that was the first time both those women had attended court, because it had just been Conor and his father, Tony, the entire time. But on the last day when the verdict was expected, his mother and his partner, Dee Devlin, came with him, and there was immediate distress.
So, after several days of testimony from not only doctors and eyewitnesses, but also Nikita and McGregor themselves, the jury heard closings. Remy Farrell, McGregor's attorney, said, "If you find for McGregor, that would be devastating for Miss Hand, and if you find for Miss Hand, it would be devastating for Mr. McGregor. There is always a winner and a loser. It is not about who you would like to see win or lose. You might want to highlight the sheer number of lies she tells to her boyfriend, and you might want to consider how persistent those lies are. Mr. Lawrence has been described as a patsy, but yet she is suing him for sexual assault. How can she bring him to court saying you raped me, but then in court say, I don't believe I had sex with him? You might well be scratching your heads about this. It is extraordinary. She is prepared to sue someone for rape in circumstances where she doesn't think she had sex with them." And talking about James Lawrence, his attorney, John Fitzgerald, addressed the jury, and he said it makes no sense that Lawrence would just insert himself into the case if he had done something wrong. Quote, "One thing everyone agrees is there was a media storm about a sports star allegedly raping a woman in a Dublin hotel, and would someone make up a story to put themselves into that story, which could lead to a criminal charge? Who would do that? Who would make up a story to put themselves in that frame?" He's basically referring to the fact that James Lawrence had told law enforcement that he had sex with Nikita. Now, Nikita's attorney, John Gordon, also spoke to the jury and said, "Dr. Ann Leader, one of the country's most prominent psychiatrists involved in over 5,000 cases, said that Miss Hand had PTSD. And what causes that? A violent assault, and that has not been challenged. The defendants did not call a psychiatrist, and they could have. I suggest the reason they did not is they knew any of these professional people would agree with the plaintiff's professional witness. There was uncontroverted evidence that my client suffered a violent incident." And Gordon also claimed that Lawrence and McGregor, they were in cahoots. Lawrence's legal fees were being paid by McGregor. And Gordon suggests that Lawrence went to the police, gave his version of events because of McGregor. It was at McGregor's instructions to throw doubt on what Nikita had to say. Now, McGregor and Lawrence have denied this. And during his argument in reference to McGregor, Gordon said, "What he should have done, if he was a man at all, is apologize to my client for what he did. But he is not a man. He is a coward, a devious coward, and you should treat him for what he is." Well, after all of that, after all of the evidence, after all of the arguments, the jury determined in the end that Conor McGregor was liable for raping and battering Nikita Hand. And the jury ordered him to pay damages that totaled nearly 250,000 euros, or about $257,000. But remember, she sued two men here. And the jury had a different opinion when it came to James Lawrence. They did not believe that James Lawrence sexually assaulted Nikita. He was cleared. And by the way, I will say, as a matter of law, similar to the United States, the standard of proof in Ireland's civil court is lower than in a criminal court. You're not proving beyond a reasonable doubt. You don't have to prove 100% that something happened, but you find whether something more likely than not happened. They call it, I believe, in Ireland, a balance of the probabilities. In civil court in the United States, we call it a preponderance of the evidence. More likely than not, something occurred. And it took the jury about 6 hours to come to a decision. Nikita spoke outside of the court when the verdict came down, saying in part that she wants to show her own daughter, as well as every other boy and girl, that you can stand up for yourself. If something happens to you, no matter who the person is, justice will be served. To all the victims of sexual assault, I hope my story is a reminder that no matter how afraid you might be, speak up. You have a voice and keep on fighting for justice. Now, as far as McGregor is concerned, he and his fiancée Dee Devlin, who was with him in court on Friday, they didn't speak with reporters after the verdict. They were ushered into a car right afterwards. Having said that, he did blast the results and Nikita on social media afterwards, because in a now deleted tweet from that weekend, McGregor blasted the courts and congratulated his friend James Lawrence. He wrote, "Two men falsely accused, one vindicated, the other soon to be. Congrats James Lawrence on absolute exoneration." And later on in the tweet, McGregor called the verdict absolute nonsense. How these lies were accepted, I will never know. A court of feeling and opinion brainwashed into people via the mainstream media, not of fact. Now it appears McGregor deleted that long message and instead reposted comments from a supporter. But he did post on X afterwards. And he wrote, "People want to hear from me. I needed time. I know I made mistakes. 6 years ago, I should have never responded to her outreaches. I should have shut the party down. I should never have stepped out on the woman I love the most in the world. That's all on me. As much as I regret it, everything that happened that night was consensual, and all the witnesses present swore to that under oath. I have instructed my legal team to appeal the decision. I can't go back, and I will move forward. I am beyond grateful to my family, friends, and supporters all over the world who have stayed by my side. That's it, no more. Getting back to the gym, the fight game awaits." So what is next for Conor McGregor? Well, as he indicated, he vows to appeal this, and here is Aoife on more on that.
Conor McGregor did allude to that in the tweet. He said that he felt that not all the evidence had been put forward, and from what I picked up, he was alluding to the fact that some had been left out. So that could be a legal route that his legal team decide to go down if they want an appeal. And you better believe Conor McGregor will be throwing everything at this.
And when it comes to James Lawrence, there have been talks based on his recent social media posts that he may want to countersue Nikita Hand right now. So we will see where it goes next, but there you have it. Conor McGregor found liable for a brutal sexual assault, and we will see what the effects of this legal case will be. That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.